The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back to another splendid week on the Brandon Peters Show. Today features a conversation on the landmark 1984 mockumentary, This Is Spinal Tap. Joining me for that discussion, I'm beyond excited to welcome two-time Hugo Award winner and creator and host of Radio Free Skaro, as well as Lazy Doctor Who, Stephen Schapansky.
Thank you very much. Does my bio say 2 Hugo Awards? I've gone on to win somehow. I've gone on to win 3 more.
3 more?
Yeah, not because of me. I am basically like, Spinal Tap is the band and I am just the lowly drummer riding the coattails of their success and somehow managing to survive to win 5 Hugos as opposed to getting blown up at every concert. So yeah, Uncanny Magazine is the outfit that I have ridden the coattails on doing the podcast for, hence the 5 Hugo Awards.
Gotcha. Part of my poor research, but I knew you had won 1 or 2 of these, and then there's a place called like the Sci-Fi Awards database, and you were listed for 2 of them.
I know. I'm only listed for 2. I did some research on this, not for something to brag about, but for confirmation. And I do believe that in all of the history of the Hugo Awards, which I think have been handed out since 1949 or something like that, I am the winningest Canadian in Hugo Awards history.
All right. Well,
yep. So
what pose are you going to do for the statue that's going to be outside somewhere?
I don't know. I call those Hugo Awards monuments to imposter syndrome, because I won it for a podcast for a magazine, as opposed to like all the people who like write books for decades, yearning to get one of these suckers, have never got one, and I've got I've got 5, and plus my wife, who's also producer of the podcast, she got Hugos too. So there are 10 Hugo Awards in our home. And occasionally, I remember watching an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and an episode when they're sort of like, it's the Far Beyond the Stars. I don't know how well you know DS9.
It's one of the best Star Trek series there is. So,
it is the best. I believe the lab results are in it. It did say it was the best. And in the one episode, because it's like takes place in this 1950s dream world in a science fiction magazine production company, and one of the writers or someone who was working on the show brought in their Hugo Award as a prop. And I remember seeing that, going, that's so cute that one person on the thing has won Hugo. And I could work on that show and go, which one of these monuments to imposter syndrome would you want to use for the prop? Maybe put this one over here.
Right.
Maybe you can use one in a different scene, perhaps. So yeah, it's a burden that I wear with pride. Most winningest Canadian.
What's in the package? It's just another Hugo.
Just another Hugo. Yeah. I actually was able to receive one in person because they bounce around. They were in like Helsinki and Scotland and I don't know where else, somewhere in the States. And I was actually at the one in San Jose, the third one where we won. And that was nice. It was nice to sort of like be on a stage and like do a speech and stuff and win an award. Usually it's just like I'm watching a somewhat janky live stream from somewhere halfway across the world, and you find out on Twitter 3 minutes before you're watching it that actually you've won, and say, "Oh, I guess we won a Hugo Award." So.
Wow. Yeah, it's so weird with those never think about them in your life happening awards, because not that I'm a recipient of anything like that.
Right.
Become a reality. Like I have a friend of mine, Russell McGee, who's an audio engineer for Big Finish. Tie him into this.
Oh, nice.
He did an audio drama of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a couple years ago, and it got nominated for a Rondo Award, a Rondo Hat. And it's like, whoa. He's like, yeah, I never thought I'd be up for one of those. And then my friend Maxwell Haddad, who's been on the show, he won a Tony like a couple months ago as a producer. Yeah, he won a Tony Award.
Wow.
He was just happy to be nominated. And then they finally, it was like last year, and then he was nominated last like December, and then they couldn't figure out when to have the awards, and they had it, and he won. And I was like,
Good for him.
Hey, yeah, just he's like, I'm knowing people who have won prestigious awards. It's my thing now. I know them. I don't.
I know you got
myself.
Hugo Award winners.
There you go.
So congratulations, I guess.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, to bring it back to myself. Yes. As we do. So you are I'm going to guess that you run one of maybe the longest fan podcasts of all time. Maybe longest running.
I don't know about you're talking about Radio Free Skaro.
Radio Free Skaro, yes. Your Dr.
Which
like it's one of them, right?
It's got to be up there. We started it in August of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
So just over a year since the show came back in 2005. We've done a lot of episodes. There's a show called Tin Dog Podcast, which is just one person. He usually does shorter episodes, so he's managed to crank out more episodes than us. There is a German Doctor Who podcast.
Really?
It's called WhoCast. I believe they are still going. Not nearly as many episodes, but they started before us.
Wow.
And there were a couple others that started before us that have since come and gone. But we, the three of us, have continued for over 15 years now.
Okay.
Because we don't know what else to do with our lives. So
it's amazing.
To it. It's
the same three. It's the same three. And in podcasting, it's got to be a rarity that has happened from upstart, homegrown, nobody's living in mansions type thing. Like
we've upgraded our mics over the years.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
We've grown older. It's fascinating to think that, when I started that, I'm 46 now. I was 31 when I started this podcast. I mean, think of when you were 15 years younger than you are now. Just like, my word. Like, so yeah, sometimes it's difficult to comprehend. I met my spouse through the podcast. She listened to it. As a fan, and then we started talking, and we met at a Doctor Who convention, and now she married me, and she moved here, and now has her own Doctor Who podcast. So, like, this silly podcast thing has become more than just a hobby. I dare say, yeah.
No, I think people don't understand that with podcasting, that it could be. I mean, they're like, oh, it's a hobby. I'm like, hobbies don't involve like crushing hours, working schedule, like.
Right.
It is job-like. It is very job-like, but it's like the fun job that you'd be like, oh, I would do this for free. I guess I'm doing this for free. I would do it for free, but money involved. But there's Patreon and ways to do that.
There's Patreon. I mean, it's not the. I think we were sort of, enough people came up to us over the years thinking, I would pay you money to make this podcast. Like, I would chip in, a couple bucks a month, and enough people said, oh, fine, we'll call your bluff then, generous listeners, and for the most part they did. No, but it's fun because it's a Doctor Who podcast, and I love Doctor Who. And oftentimes when I'm thinking, what would I want to listen to on a Doctor Who podcast that's made expressly for me, and then you realize, wait a minute, I make that podcast. And so if I want to do a feature on a director or a writer or something, or if, on occasions like a Doctor Who book has come out and says, I love this book to death. Let's email all three of the people who worked on this book and get them on the show to talk about it. And it feels kind of like, in a way, I feel a little bit guilty just because, people will like go to a convention or something or try to ask them a question on Twitter. But no, I have a podcast, which is I could email them and they'll come on my show and talk about their book. I'll steal 45 minutes of their time to talk about the thing, whereas people like have to beg, borrow, and steal to get 30 seconds at a convention or something like that. So it's handy. It's handy to.
It is, yeah. That's something I never, realized. There's things to realize with that, but yeah, like a podcast. Well, This is serious business. I'll take that offer up.
I don't know why the podcast is like, if I'd like to email you all these questions, and who is this weirdo? But you have a podcast. Sure, I'll come on and talk about myself for an hour about my book. Sure, I don't.
Can I get a soundbite, please?
I don't know what's so alluring about a podcast for people to come on these shows.
It's weird. It's taken seriously for as much as it's joked about being people in their basements or whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a podcast. Well, then everybody wants to be on a podcast as much as everybody wants to start a podcast.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And, you're mentioning all the different aspects of that's one of the best things about your show. I only discovered your show a few years ago. Well, I don't know. In these times, I don't know how long, but
right.
I was very surprised. And I'm normally, I'm in the world of podcasting, that there are a lot of subpar podcasts out there. There are a lot of not to push
fighting words. Yeah,
fighting words.
Yeah.
So and you can come into it, especially like fan podcasts. You don't know who you're going to get, whatever. And I was hungry, and I normally stay away from them. And then also when you're in podcasting, you don't listen to a lot of podcasts, which is a weird thing.
No,
but I found through like a forum, a link to your show because I was hungry for Blu-ray Doctor Who news.
Okay.
Like I want to know everything and I think you had an interview early on in the series, like early on in the sets, you had an interview with somebody.
Right.
And I came like, okay, I'm going to suck it up and just listen to this interview. And I came for the Doctor Who stuff, but I stayed because of the production values, the preparation of the show, and the personalities of the show really just stuck out huge.
Oh.
With you guys. And I think that's something people should know about your show. It's I can't tell you how many shows I tell people because I run a group in Indy I co-manage called Podcast Indy, and it's for local podcasters, and we help them start podcasts, make their podcast better, things like that.
Right.
And one thing I preach is write your show. This one thing people don't think about is turn the mics on, talk. But I'm like, you need you need something. And I can tell with your show, there's minutes, points, there's a steering wheel there that really is different than a lot of shows.
Well, it's called a list of topics.
There you go.
And that's about it when it comes to. It's funny because I think we had some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? We felt like we sort of owed listeners probably more than they actually wanted. And so we would often what are we going to do on the show? We have to have an interview or some sort of feature. And only recently did people say that actually we mostly listened to the show for the banter, for the three of you talking about Doctor Who. And I feel like I busted my ass trying to get some of these interviews. You don't even appreciate them. But to go back to the Blu-ray point, I mean, yes, our sort of the one thing that all three of us have in common is that I don't think we think that a lot of Doctor Who podcasts sort of focus on the creative aspect, like how it's made.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Being a producers, directors, and the people who make the Blu-rays. And so you're probably referring to, I think Russell Minton has been on the show 2 or 3 times. He's the executive producer of the whole range. And I dropped him a line, and it turned out he was already a listener to the show, which is handy. And so
he's like, "Oh my gosh, they contacted me."
And so, once I heard that, well, I just contact them all the time to talk about Doctor Who Blu-ray stuff. The nuts and bolts. It's one thing to talk about the episodes, but I feel like the Doctor Who Blu-ray set, which I was not expecting. I was expecting the DVDs to sort of pass off into non-existence, and that would be it for physical media for the classic series of Doctor Who. And then they started bringing out these amazing Blu-ray sets.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, A, I'm interested in them, and B, I think everyone else should be interested in them too.
They should.
So that they do well and they'll keep making them. And so I want to help spread the word. I don't think I need to spread the word that much. I think there's enough of an audience to buy them in the first place. But it's work on those things that is worth celebrating, and that's another function of the podcast.
Right?
We love Doctor Who, so let's celebrate not only the show but those who make it as well.
Yeah, and that's one aspect I really liked about the show. I could tell you all have some sort of production background or at least understanding, because there's a lot of stuff with the fandom things that people don't get. There's a business angle to things, there's production angles, there's understanding and it helps you appreciate something a lot more if you understand those things. I feel like in modern fandom, that's a thing that's lacking. It's just what's the story, but not understanding how everything came to be that story. And some things that people think some par are maybe not, or there's a reason why, or where people get divisive on things. And
Yeah. I love the episodes of Doctor Who or whatever show. Especially the back in the day when, like, Star Trek Next Generation or something, it was like 24 or 26 episodes a year. And they basically, listen, we have an episode that's due to shoot in 6 days, and we don't have a script. And we can't postpone it. It's not like we could say, no, we're only going to do 25 episodes. We have to fill that slot somehow. Here's something that we probably speed wrote. The script isn't that polished. We got to go before the cameras, though, because we got to keep making something. The show must go on. And it's terrible because there's not enough time has been put into it because they didn't have because something else went wrong. It's the finding out and the analyzing how it went wrong that I find fascinating. So, like, when I watch something that's bad, I don't think nobody sets out to make some bad piece of television, but something along the line has gone wrong, and then something else has gone wrong to sort of try to compensate for that. And all of a sudden you've got like 8 or 9 things have gone wrong. And those are the things that I find fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I never sort of like look at a TV show and go, that's just bad. They just made bad stuff. Like, what happened here? Something happened here where they had to cut a corner to do something to make it sort of like some way presentable. And I find it admirable that people behind the scenes, did their absolute best to try to make the best of a bad situation.
Some marriages were ended over that episode, like
quite possibly. Yeah.
Somebody was injured.
Or maybe begun. And
yes.
maybe they were distracted because they were too busy, getting to know their future spouse, perhaps.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I like that. I guess since you're listeners, but I like those mini scopes where you do focus more on what a certain person brings to certain episodes. So you have the ability to talk about an episode multiple times, but from different angles and different appreciations. Like, I really enjoy that sort of thing. And you're not limited to just Doctor Who. You during we're still in a pandemic, but last year you had like data experts and people who study diseases and things on your show, which was great. Like, it wasn't like what I tune in, like, what Doctor Who? Oh, we're going to talk about the pandemic, but it was good stuff. Like,
because it was weird. The early days of that pandemic, he says with fondness as if it's over, as you say.
We always had the pandemic,
Yeah. No, it just happened to be that someone who we knew, Stacey Smith, who was a writer of several Doctor Who books, also was like I don't know what her title is, but like, disease mathematician. Basically, her job is to track and predict how pandemic spread. And I thought, well, you know what? We could talk about her book and we could also ask her about the pandemic. And then a writer friend who we knew actually came down with COVID in the early days. And so I sort of felt it like, a responsibility to not ignore what was going on because it was everywhere. COVID was everywhere, and especially in those early days. And so we kind of leaned into it from a Doctor Who angle to almost, to sort of say, it's scary, but here is some information that maybe we can help to get through this. You know? Providing a service, if I might be so portentous to say. That's kind of what I felt we should be doing in those first few days of the pandemic, and back when we thought that would be over in like 6 weeks or something like that, and here we are, going on 2 years.
Yeah. Gonna be
fun times.
Interesting December. As close as we get. If we get close, I don't know. I'm doing my part. I can't try to be responsible for other people, but
I mean, it's we're finding out that it's not a over and done with situation. Like, it doesn't all end at the same time. It's a much bigger fade out than it is. Everything sort of went into lockdown at once, and that's what was kind of terrifying. Like, basically all of North America, like the second week of March, everyone says, "Oh boy, let's just shut everything down," and everyone just shut down. Borders closed, shops closed, sports leagues done, and then now over the past few months, it's just sort of been, okay, we do this now. Okay, we'll do this, but we'll wear masks, and then now we're vaccinated and this, and and so I was sort of expecting like this. Oh, we found a vaccine, and there's this big hurrah orchestra build moment, and everyone just gets vaccinated the next day, and like 2 weeks later, we all run out into the sunshine, and everything's back to normal. Yeah, but it's not.
Nope.
It's not that way. It's not how it works.
It mutates.
If
you don't take care of it, it stays around.
But there's always been Doctor Who to talk about over the past couple of years, so that's it's not like we've been hurting for content.
No, and right now we're in the middle of Flux, which has been whereas as of this recording, the Village of the Angels is the recent episode. When this episode drops, it won't be. No. But where we're at as this recording is a week behind what you're listening to. But I am loving this. I don't even care if they stick the landing. I'm enjoying the ride. Like I'm a ride person. So if you can just decently drop an ending that's okay, I'm going to be very happy. Like because my favorite part of the roller coaster isn't when the thing comes up and you get off and walk out. It's during. So
right.
So I always explain to people.
I know it's I mean, I love pretty much all Doctor Who, so it's not hard for me to get excited about it, but I feel like this is the Doctor Who that the BBC hired Chris Chibnall away from Broadchurch to make, and it took him his third and final season to make the show that I think everyone was sort of expecting, and it's brilliant. He's really good at it. I think this is easily my favorite season of his. I
like series 12 a lot too.
I did too,
but there's like, I can be better too.
Yeah, I feel like the way the TV is now, where everything's sort of a serialized, maybe even everything's sort of contained to one season and maybe some holdovers for the year after or something like that. I think this is just the way that modern TV is being made, and it's nice to see sort of Doctor Who get into that, because as of so many shows started off on basic cable or some other cable network, and then they just sort of splintered off, and now they're just all on streaming services, and it's only Doctor Who, the only show left basically of its kind that's beholden to like TV ratings and TV schedules and the old way of doing things. So I like that it's sort of moving it into new ground for it.
I thought of it like, because it was weird, like I was like, well, it is Doctor Who and it isn't Doctor Who, because back in the day you used to get a bunch of serials and that was a season, and now we got a lot of standalones and then maybe a tie-in here and there. But I was thinking the other day, I was like, what if, because they typical season without a pandemic, without a thing, was like 11 to 13 episodes, right? Yeah. About that. What I was thinking, this could work and be a lot of fun if maybe Doctor Who premieres in the fall with a 5 to 6 episode serial, New Year's or Christmas Day special, and then the spring with another 5 to 6 episode serial. You don't have to throw it all at once. You can have some gaps in production and maybe take a year off if that's a need. But I think between 2 5 to 6 episode serials, when things get to more normal production standards again, that could be a doable thing. And then you get multiple serials, a standalone special, like could have a variety of things. But
I think that's a great idea. I hope they do that. I think it's also I said this on the podcast, when you get to be as, let's face it, as old as modern Doctor Who is. I refuse to call it New Who anymore, because it's not new. It's 16 years old. It's tough to say, hey, look at this fresh new brand new series from Russell T Davies. Hey, it's also series 14 of Doctor Who.
Right.
You could get away with that by just saying, like, they're not referring it to as series 13. It's Doctor Who Flux.
Next it's on
year,
the title card.
It's the title card. It's not series 13 next year. If hopefully, this is my dream, but like if Russell T Davies' first new series of Doctor Who is like Doctor Who : some other overall arching title, and you don't have to worry
Rise
about
of the New Dawn.
Rise of the New Dawn. What insert title here?
Generic title,
yeah, and you don't have to worry about calling it a number, because anytime you put a number next to it, it sort of indicates how long you've been around for. And being around for 14 seasons of Modern Who is pretty impressive, but it doesn't look as exciting when you're trying to market it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And do you think we'll get it? Because this 14th series will be around the 60th anniversary. Do you think they'll have that first and then a 60th special, or do you think we just wait until the 60th?
I think it starts at the 60th special.
Okay. So New Doctor congrats. You
Quite
get the 60th
possibly, yeah.
special.
I think it's been a while since I read the press release. But I think it's going to be that, because basically, what are we, next year's 2022? I have to do this right. Like, they'll be making it. That's the thing. They'll probably start making it sometime next year, maybe in the spring, once everything's cast, written, designed, and everything. But they won't be showing it for another year, probably. Maybe they'll have enough. Maybe there'll be this. I mean, based on Russell T Davies' comments about, there should be a Doctor Who expanded universe, and there should be 10 different series and stuff. And then this is before he became showrunner again. And now everyone's sort of expecting this Doctor Who expanded universe. So yes, they might start next spring making Doctor Who, but after they're done that, maybe they start making another couple spin-off series and have that in the can. But I can't imagine that Russell T Davies would want a spin-off, not the main show, basically, to be the first thing that is seen publicly. So I think what we might hopefully not in for a whole year off between Jodie Whittaker's last in October of 2022 to the 60th anniversary special. But fingers crossed. I don't know anything about that though.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure. I'm like, do they want it to if they bring back a lot of doctors, do they want it to overshadow whoever the new person is?
That's the thing.
It's a weird, because I thought, oh, they'll keep Jodie around till the 60th, and then the year before, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
So
maybe there will be a new season in the spring.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
2023. Yeah. Logistically, it makes sense. I think maybe it's a Christmas special. Maybe Doctor Who returns as a Christmas special, which hasn't happened since Chris Chibnall took over. And you know how much Russell T Davies loves Christmas.
I'm taking back Christmas,
He's
Chibnall.
taking it back, and I'm okay with that. I miss them.
I do too. Yeah.
I miss. In a way, I miss having to wrangle a watching of the episode and a recording of the podcast around Christmas dinners. It was frenetic and frantic, but I kind of missed the buzz of all that. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss the chaos.
I miss the chaos. I miss the inconvenience of Doctor Who Christmas specials, but I really miss them.
All right. Oh, gotta go to Doctor Who. Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. No, that's good stuff. Good stuff. And also I have that here. Like, you've interviewed so much talent over the years, through the Gallifrey One convention, your own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first interview that you felt like, oh my gosh? And then what was one that's still out there that's possible, a person's still alive, that you could, that if they called up, you'd be like, yes.
Oh,
finally.
It's odd. I never fashioned myself as being an interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
But we were at our first Gallifrey One convention, and there was a writer of a book, David J. Howe, who was there, and he wrote several Doctor Who books that I grew up with, and so they both, Warren and Chris, my co-host, felt that you should be the one to talk to him, and I was like, I am terrified of talking to people. But I did. And I also talked to Steve Roberts, who was behind the Doctor Who DVDs at the time as well. Because I sort of knew the most about those things, I was sort of the natural in their eyes. And then I sort of grew in confidence since then. I think the first big one was later that year in 2009, because we reached out to Phil Ford, who was co-writer of The Waters of Mars, the David Tennant special from 2009. And it was going to air in November 15th, 2009, as I recall. And we managed to get a hold of Phil Ford, who was, I think we talked to him at Gallifrey One, that's why. And we got him to as an interview on the show a week before. And so it felt like this is we've got an exclusive with a Doctor Who writer who's writing an episode that hasn't even aired yet. And it was that was sort of like our coming of age moment. So that was the first one. Oddly enough, the last interview I've done was in February of 2020 because of the pandemic, but Christopher Eccleston on stage at Gallifrey One, which I will never forget. I will never forget that interview. In many ways, I'm glad that a pandemic has happened because nothing could top that. So yay. It was his first appearance at a Doctor Who convention. He'd only done a couple of audience Q&As with like at a couple other places like Portland, I think, and Minneapolis or somewhere else. But this is his first actual Doctor Who convention, and I was asked to do it, which I said yes, please. And then what I loved is that the convention runner Sean Lyon said, okay, but here's the catch though. I kind of don't want to have audience questions. Are you okay with that? And that's when I thought he was joking, because like obviously, yes, I would just like to speak. I talked earlier before about having my own 60 minutes with whoever I want. I felt like, okay, I get to have 60 minutes, the first 60 minutes with Christopher Eccleston that he's ever had at a Doctor Who convention. And the reception he received was astounding. I told him before we went on, because on stage there, because for those that don't know, Christopher Eccleston was Doctor Who for 1 year, then he left under mysterious circumstances and sort of was estranged from the world of Doctor Who until relatively recently. And I said on stage at the Gallifrey 1 convention, there's a TARDIS, as is the case in many other Doctor Who conventions, I'm sure. But I suggested to him, I think you should go through the TARDIS and emerge from the TARDIS doors. Almost eat that up. Almost as like a validation, like you are still the Doctor. And I remember him saying, would that give him a kick? And I said, yes, that would give him a kick. And just to be a part of that moment and the love that man received from that crowd who were waiting 15 years to show them that, for a lot of them, that he was their first Doctor. It was an emotional experience, and I could tell it meant a lot to him as well. And I wanted him to have that moment because I felt that he had sort of deserved it over the years. So
or to see what power he could have over,
And so
and buy you 10 minutes of an ovation. You only have to get through 50 more. There you go.
Exactly. So ever since that, I mean, I don't know if I have the right to have a white whale. Peter Capaldi would be such a fascinating conversation. I think he's just got a world of wisdom about him. And I think it would be but oddly enough, I find that he's not talking about Doctor Who as much since he left the show. I don't know if he's just sort of like wants to put it behind him as much, but maybe in 15 years time, he'll come around like Chris Eccleston did. But yeah, he would be a blast, I think, to talk to.
Oh, sure. He's got, such a career too. That's even beyond the Doctor Who stuff. That's crazy.
He's got an album out now, his first music album's out now, to the thick of it and everything else before that. Yeah.
Now he's in the DC Comics fandom, people. He belongs to them now.
we passed him off. We had our time with him. We were lucky enough to have that.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And so your show, it airs on Sundays.
Yes.
Except next month you guys do an advent calendar, so it's like daily, right?
It's daily. Yeah, we do what's called the Fluid Links. I don't know why we call them Fluid Links, but they're basically questions or comments that the listeners send us, and then we randomly draw one. We usually do episodes. We do 1 or 2 episodes a year just of those. It's kind of like basically a feedback show in a way, but it's not about us. It's just about Doctor Who and stuff. But over the past few years, we've done an advent calendar where we do one question a day, 6 or 7 minutes each day, building up to what used to be the Doctor Who Christmas special, but now, of course, it's not. We're not going all the way to New Year's,
right?
But Christmas is on the weekend, so at least it is building up to an episode of Radio Free Skaro at the very least this time.
There you go. Yeah, the post-Christmas episode. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely there'll be links and stuff, and you should listen to Radio Free Skaro if you're a Doctor Who fan. I know plenty of you have enjoyed my Doctor Who stuff on here, so definitely this is what I listen to. So there you go.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I whenever I'm on a non-Doctor Who podcast, I feel guilty, like I'm, like as if everyone knows about Doctor Who as much as I do. But of course they don't. So, and of course my natural Canadianism forces me to apologize for confusing anyone who doesn't know about Doctor Who.
Gotcha. There you go. Sorry. No, it's definitely good stuff. And yeah, I do. I talk about Doctor Who enough on here, and people are like, I think some of my listeners have a drinking game, and I think that's one of the things that whenever I bring up something Doctor Who,
oh my God,
they play it to my days working in Blu-ray quality control. They will take a drink too.
Put a disclaimer on this one, then.
This
'cause
one,
we've
they're
covered
not
both.
making it. It's gonna be a couple
Don't-
days before they get through this episode.
Don't take it in short doses. Just get
So-
a tiny little airport bottle of booze if you're doing the drinking game for this episode, please, dear listeners.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, so we will move on to this is Spinal Tap, which is the first feature film directed by Rob Reiner, written by Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer, and it stars Reiner, McKean, Shearer, and Guest with Tony Hendra, R.J. Parnell, David Kaff, Ed Begley Jr., Fran Drescher, Patrick McNee, featuring appearances by Howard Hessman, Paul Schaefer, Dana Carvey, Sandy Helberg, Billy Crystal, Fred Willard, and Angelica Houston, and probably a lot more, but I'm stopping there.
Right.
But, it's about Spinal Tap. One of England's loudest bands is chronicled by film director Marty DeBerge on what proves to be a fateful tour. So, Stephen, as always, when you're a new guest on the show and you bring a movie to the table, why Spinal Tap? That's my question.
I think it's one of the greatest films of all time, and I do not speak lightly when I say that. You know, it basically invented the mockumentary genre. You know, I know that there've been some stuff. I know the Ruddles, which is
All You
Eric
Need
Idle.
Is Cash. Yeah.
All You Need Is Cash. That is excellent, but I think the way they played it was perhaps a little, silly-ish. What I love about Spinal Tap is, and I'll be calling it probably Spinal Tap, not usually This Is Spinal Tap. So
You're right.
I'm sure most people will do. I watched it again for the billionth time today, just before recording this. And what I love about it is that it is, in all intents and purposes, like a serious movie where it's never played for laughs. Like everything sort of happens in the film happens like you could believe it. It's a believable, ridiculous comedy. The humor, the how sharp it is. I love that when it came out, so many bands were basically like trying to just, oh no, that's not like it is all. No, that's nothing. And then when it became popular, it's like, oh no, that's totally us. Yes, that's 100% us. We're like Spinal Tap. It just became this beacon for all of rock and roll, to say that yes, every rock and roll band has basically been represented in some way by This Is Spinal Tap. I love that Marty DeBerge jokes about, what I was impressed by, their loudness, their drive, and their punctuality. And I love that this movie is 82 minutes long, not even an hour and a half long. It's not like they shot 82 minutes. They shot over 100 hours of film footage. There is a bootleg cut that is about 6 hours long that contains entire subplots that didn't make it into the movie. What I love about the movie, not most, but one of the main things I love about it, is that it is a very good case of how editing helps a movie and just like tightens it right up to the base story. If this was made today, it would be 2.5 hours long. It would be an overlong Netflix series or something like that. It would be streamed on, but no, it's 82 minutes of pure perfection. And some of the stuff they left out is gold as well, but it would sort of detract from the actual rhythm of the movie. And that's why I think it's just a perfect movie.
Yeah. And I'm not against like long movies. If you're a great movie, tell your story, but guest of the show, Mike Vanderbilt, and I talk about a lot of times, like sometimes I want to watch like a couple movies in a night. Today, it's like most movies are like, well, that's it for my night. Time for bed, or I could watch like the first quarter of one, but I like to watch, there'll be nights where I'm like, maybe I get 2 or 3 movies in, and you usually have to go well back to watch something like Spinal Tap. I could maybe fit 4 Spinal Taps in a good evening.
You could watch that bootleg cut if you
wanted
to.
Yes. But yeah, no, the edit, like you said perfectly, like editing is such an underappreciated art form when it comes to television, movie, music production and stuff, where I don't think people realize the power an editor has to completely change a story or make you focus on something such a different way. And yeah, taking this down to 82 minutes, it could have been something completely different. But yeah, you mentioned the mockumentary aspect and how important that is. This leads to where we have with comedy television nowadays. Like it starts here because this has, this movie comes out in 84. And then towards the late 90s, Christopher Guest starts dipping back into this and making like all his movies become mockumentaries. And then Best in Show, that one becomes pretty popular.
Yeah.
And then The Office, and then Parks and Rec, and then Modern Family. And then we're all the way to What We Do in the Shadows now, which that is now the cadence for a television show. And it goes, I trace it all the way back to here. Like that's where I think it came from.
I know it starts here, and what I love about it is that like I'm mostly not a fan of all the shows that you mentioned that came after.
Well, that's fair.
Because I think they're all trying to do Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
The Christopher Guest ones are good. There's an edge to Spinal Tap. Profanity might be part of it. It feels even more real. There's no profanity in the Best in Show, The Waiting for Guffman, A Mighty Wind.
They're genuine. They got a heart to them. They all have like a bit of a charm and
and I don't know what the scripting was like for the movies. I know that Parks and Rec and The Office were definitely scripted. The dialogue in This Is Spinal Tap is almost all improvised. They basically would, here's what happens in this scene. They might work some stuff out and sort of like, here's what we'll do with it. So they're not like, just doing a bunch of yes-anding and stuff. But other than that, like it just because of that, it feels natural.
Yeah.
There's a natural, people are talking over each other. Like that's where some of the best lines get in, like just a little bit, what's wrong with being sexist? No, sexy. And just the confused look of Nigel afterwards is like, that's comedy gold right there.
Right.
Well,
and like, every scene is, okay, every scene needs to be this. We're going to walk in this door and we're leaving in this door. How we get there, that's up to you. And there's a great brilliance in the improvisation here that would kill movies in the 2000s and stuff, because there's a sense of making the scene work and completing the scene that when you get to some of the like Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen movies becomes a sense of upsmanship with the improv, where there's no straight man. It's all, I'm outrageous. No, I'm more outrageous, or I'm going to say something crazier than what you just said. This one, he's doing funny. I'm going to do something to keep him going. Like it's in assistance of each other rather than competing with each other.
I think that's what makes it feel so real. Like I'm trying to think about what my history with this movie is, because I think my first notion of Spinal Tap being a thing is when the band was on The Simpsons.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, like, it was probably like 91, 92, like second or third season.
It was early.
I want to say. I did not know of a band called Spinal Tap, but I watched that and thought it was hilarious. Then looked in the credits and thought, wait a second, there is no David St. Hubbards in the credits. There is no Nigel Tufnell. And then it dawned on me, that's not a real band. And then I had to do some research, and then I was in bands myself in the late 90s and stuff, and that movie, I'm sure with every other band, just became our shorthand. We found it and we just watched it nonstop. I watched it again today. I didn't need to. I knew all the lines, just like, and even the most inconsequential lines, like whenever we're on a mic or something, we go, this is mic number one, this is mic number one. Isn't that a lot of fun? That's, just random little bits from their sound check in there. They go, hello, Janine, David, smell the gloves here. Like literally every line has been uttered.
It's in your vernacular. It's
into the vernacular. It's just part of it. It's not even just a hello Cleveland or anything like that. I have chambered one line. I'm always waiting. I've only been able to use it once or twice. But whenever there's some sort of discussion and then it sort of dies down, and whenever somebody sort of asks, I'm going to ask a rational question at this point, I just want to jump in. No, we're not going to fucking do Stonehenge. I just want to do that instinctively every time because of that scene. There's so much gold in that.
You could set your like a Zoom background to have a little Stonehenge come down randomly.
I love that in the actual Shank Hall in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I think, I could be wrong, but I know somewhere in Wisconsin there is, even though they didn't shoot the scene there, they shot the whole movie in L.A., but it took place at Shank Hall in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There is a miniature Stonehenge hanging from the rafters of the stage.
That is
tribute.
amazing.
It's just amazing. The hold that this movie has.
If you know, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
awesome.
you know. You look up, there's Stonehenge right there.
I almost want to go to Wisconsin and see it. Like,
just take a picture of it. This 18-inch thing there, which is supposed to be 18 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I didn't see this movie until I knew who like Michael McKean was already as a certain person. I'm like, whoa, he was this, because he kind of played a lot of jerks kind of later on. And then I went back, I'm like, he was this really funny guy in this movie. It sang and was like totally not what I was expecting of him. I did realize, well, I don't know if it's this time or I've known before and it just came back up, but this is kind of oddly almost a Saturday Night Live movie because everybody involved was writing or doing something with Saturday Night Live around this time, like Shearer and McKean, guest, like Billy Crystal shows up in here, early Dana Carvey.
Very early.
Like, and Billy Crystal, I mean, it's so dumb, the mime is money, but he delivers it in such it works. Like kills me every time. I don't understand why, but he has that perfect delivery of hey, mime is money. Like just because it's like he fits it. He's real. He sells it. It's so good.
It's like that's been the company of the company edict basically of shut up and eat. That's what it's called. In an outtake in the movie, he's talking to Marty DeBurgi and he goes, "Oh, we call it shut up and eat. That's what we call our company." It's you get the feeling that this has been his life, and mime is money has been like basically on his business card.
Right. And you're talking about The Simpsons. I was reading that apparently Fran Drescher reprised her role for an episode of The Nanny, a show I did not watch in the 90s. She played that character again. It was catching up with her, and it was like what that character was doing now.
I want to say, like, I haven't watched all the extras in a while, and I think there was a thing in 1992. It was straight to video, which I do not have. But they released a new song, I think Christmas with the Devil, I think it was, and I think it was in concert with a concert. They actually had a live concert film.
Okay.
With a couple of different, like they had one with Marty DeBurgi, Rob Reiner there, and Fran Drescher did reprise her role. I don't know where she was in her career at that point before she was Bobby Fleckman.
Right.
Bobby Fleckman, you know, yeah.
Because I mean, 5 years later is when she's in the Weird Al movie UHF.
Right.
But yeah, so there's like a 5-year gap there, and then she just headlines a sitcom later on that like runs forever. I think that one went for a long time, but she's young Fran Drescher, like really works quite well. Liked her at UHF, like her at this. Definitely. But this too, Reiner is a nice talent to have here too, that like recreating things like that, the Flower People. That video is stunningly genuine and amazing. Like it's so to the touch like that 70s stuff that it's hilarious. Like because it doesn't try to overdo it. It just like you said, a lot of this movie plays it straight and it works like gangbusters.
It does. It's they shoot it on videotape and transfer it to film. As it's not done on film. That's what I love about it, because you could tell they shoot on video, as would be like live TV or something back in 1964 or 67 with the Flower People. It's that little attention to detail. If they shot it on film, I wouldn't have believed it. They put it on videotape. It looks worse, but because of that, it looks better. The attention to detail. The three stars wrote and perform the songs. They mimed them on stage, but they were so I know that Christopher Guest was so concerned about making sure that he was miming or playing to the right things, that they did reshoots to make sure that he actually was like doing the proper finger movements. Like they were dedicated to their craft, and those are genuinely good bad songs. That's what I love about them.
They're like, I think there are bands that wish they would have had something like that as the real thing. And these are awful. Like the sex farm, that is
Sex farm woman. Yeah.
oh, that's a I think the kids would call that a banger. I
It
don't
would
know.
be.
So
I think one of the ultimate validations for Spinal Tap was it at Live 8 that it happened. It was the one where Pink Floyd recoalesced with the original lineup for one show. I think it was 2005. That's right. It seems like a lot earlier. It doesn't seem that long ago. But Spinal Tap played, and as the closing number of their set,
Mhm.
they brought every bass player in every band who was on at Live 8 on that set. They had like 30 odd different bass players to play Big Bottom, which is, somewhat famously all the three players are playing bass guitars for that. And so you had the bass player from Metallica and every other band playing the do 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 do
Yeah.
bump bump. And from a mockumentary about how ridiculous rock music is to playing in Wembley Stadium
Yes.
with 30 other bass players playing this song that is actually mocking their life. It's just it's complete utter validation of how brilliant and influential Spinal Tap somehow became.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Mhm.
Just to see, we just made this, and the movie really, I mean, it was a critical hit, but it took off in VHS. It was one of those movies that VHS really helped build the lore, and now becomes like a staple of music as well as movies. Like,
Right? Not for the last. It's what I look at this movie and I wonder where movies were in 1984. You're looking at your Gremlins and your
Ghostbuster, yeah.
Ghostbusters and Indiana Jones. Sort of this we're entering this weird world of kind of sort of gross out films,
Mhm.
And then there's this strange documentary, what looks to be a documentary. It was shot like a documentary. The guy
Mhm.
who did the camera work was had great experience working in cinema verite kind of style, just sort of wandering. That's why they chose him to it.
Yeah.
They chose to make it look like an eye. He didn't understand what the joke was. He was just sort of shooting as follow them around to here and this stuff. So the fact that no one quite knew what they were sort of working with, I think, apart from the people who were really behind it, I think I could see why this wouldn't land with
Mhm.
audiences in the cinema. Thank God for VHS.
Well, yeah.
This
Well, I
movie
mean,
came out any earlier, I might not have had that bump.
yeah, when you're different, doing something different and good usually takes a while to merit. Some people will be on board right away, and then others turned off. I mean, you bring it back to Doctor Who. You see that
Right.
with Doctor Who. Some stuff that would be way back in the day is now
Yeah.
cherished, beloved. And that's going to happen too with as much as the haters of the Jodie Whittaker era want to cry, there's going to be fondness. And you know what? Actually, it wasn't so bad. People that come around when they finally, it gels with them or something becomes what it is. But usually when these things happen, the first one has to take the hit and then opens the door for changing comedy and, allowing stuff like that, because then SNL would have fake documentaries as well once in a while, the sketches.
Yeah. And as I sort of said, none have been as successful as Spinal Tap. Listen, I understand the impulse. It's a great genre. It is a great approach to do for comedy is the mockumentary style. Peter Capaldi did one. He did one called the Cricklewood Greats about he's basically longingly looking back at a fictitious old movie studio. It's really good. It's very difficult to find. I somehow found it, but everyone sort of does it. But this is it's just so it's the improvisation of everything that makes it feel so natural. I love the scene, of course, where Rob Reiner doesn't tell the three of them that he's going to read what album reviews he's going to read.
Right.
So when you watch that scene, it's him reading to them they're hearing it for the first time as they're reacting to it in character, which is great because this is about the rock and roll creation. What day did God rest? And surely he could have rested when they created Spinal Tap too. And you could sort of see Michael McKean goes, "Oh, it's a good one. It's a good one." And then, of course, the famous one. He goes, "There's just a 2-word review for Shark Sandwich, shit sandwich." and you
Oh.
can tell that they laugh. They almost break character, but they laugh in character because it's so fucking funny.
It's good.
God.
Yeah. It's
People still say shit sandwich
sandwich. Yeah.
regards to anything, not just albums. It's it's brilliant.
And then there's stuff in there that I laugh. Like, I believe one of their songs or albums when they're like a Beatles-esque band is Pop, Look, and Listen, which it's so brilliant because somebody would have called something that then
100%,
and it's so dumb but clever. It just makes this whole round that you're just like you're like, okay, it might go by you one time watching and you don't think too hard about it, and then when you think about it, you're like, some exec would have named something that easily.
100%. Like now! ! Right. Somewhere around 1966, I'll bet. Probably an album called that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now,
the attention to detail is perfect.
Yeah. It's so like you could, man, you could show like not that I would recommend showing a child Spinal Tap, but they could buy it as a real documentary and not 100%. Really understand like, wow, that was weird. But oh gosh. And then, they're also the Black Album cover that they never, predating the Metallica Black Album,
which was made in homage to that Black Album
and became the highest selling album of the 90s.
It's already been a joke in Spinal Tap. I know.
Yeah.
So
gosh.
Great.
Yeah, which is it's hinted to with Fran Drescher talking about the White Album. That had nothing on it, and it's sold. So
I know. God, I love that. It's one of my there's a lot of jokes in Spinal Tap, but also it's a lot of hints at stuff too, because that brings up one of my favorite lines. They're all my favorite lines, but when he goes, that there's a glove, with a door collar, and smelling it, was, well, let me tell you what it wasn't. What they wanted to put in the cover, it wasn't a hand, it wasn't a glove. I could tell you, and just like so, your imagination is like, what was the original, already rejected version of this album cover that was never seen?
And we never see the album cover. Is it not in deleted material or anything? Like, that's the best thing. The best thing is to never see it.
That's the best part of the joke. You never see it. If you saw it, I imagine, if Parks and Rec had done something like that, there would be a crash zoom into the actual album cover, and everyone had their little laugh and reaction shots and everything. But nope, Spinal Tap just cuts right to the bone and uses the bare comedy. It just uses what it needs and moves on and lets the audience fill in what they don't need to see.
I say this with movies, with TV, with like, sometimes the best thing is not explaining, leaving it to the imagination. Something in a movie is scarier if you don't explain the evil. If it's just that something, sometimes things that pop on screen don't need gigantic backstories or spin-off movies. They are just that, and they can be
exactly
be fine.
Slightly off topic, but in that line of thinking, I watched Groundhog Day literally for the first time like 2 years ago, and I remember at the time I was sort of thinking, oh, this is weird, but now I love it that they never explain why he keeps repeating that day.
It's not important. It's
not important.
They call that a MacGuffin. But
whatever.
It's like, it happens. Is it okay? It's gonna be funny, but we don't care why it does this, and that's fine. Like, I don't like. I come from a school of I surrender myself to fiction. Like, it's fiction. It doesn't need to. I'm not going $3 for reality, please. No, when I paid $3 for a movie, that's not how much they cost. But I guess
they did one day, my son. They did one day.
I guess some digital rentals, but I don't go like this. I hit my remote or something.
Please take my ticket that's been in my pocket for a week.
Yes, I've got
for this digital movie
for a reality show, please. Life isn't an hour and a half, so why should you? That's a whole nother discussion.
Very much.
For my series that I tease my viewers is going to come to fruition someday. Panels called Fandom, DUMB, Fandom, to talk about things like that. But who knows? But yes, Spinal Tap. There's so much. There's a scene I want to point out, because I talk about clothing or apparel stuff from movies that I would like to own myself.
Okay.
Starting with Jesse from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. He's this hat in a scene that I want. Nobody, my listeners are still on the hunt for it. Michael McKean's sweatshirt with the stars and Saturn, I would wear the heck out of that.
That he wants to take off because he wants to go to the back. I just want to play the new game. The new game they got there.
The Commodore 64.
Oh, look at the computer magic! Quite amazing. Yeah.
I would wear the minute a breeze hits. I'm wearing that all till the sun comes up.
That would be amazing. And I wonder if Janine made like sweatshirts for all the rest of the band, just like she was designing, astrological.
Oh, their images.
Costumes,
yes.
You know
how much it would cost. I like it. They're like, cool. Like, how much would that? Yeah. How much would that?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It costs a lot to dress them up as animals. They're not dressed up as animals. They're dressed up as signs of the zodiac.
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, and they never show them as that either. That would have been.
It's the joke. That's the joke.
It's the joke.
It's the imagination that actually makes it funnier than actually properly seeing it.
The imagination and reaction is what works for it.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sure there's fan art of them, which.
Quite probably
doing that.
Maybe on their tour of Japan after the end of the movie, they wear those costumes, possibly.
True. And there's where is it? Oh, I felt old because I remember Sears and Kmart stores. Well, not just remember that. I remember not so much Kmart, but Sears carrying cool stuff like they'd sell VHS tapes, they'd sell albums and TVs and stuff. I don't even know if Sears is still around. They closed those or something.
They closed.
Yeah, they closed
Sears
them.
Closed. I know.
But for the longest time, like once like somewhere in the 90s hit, they're like, we're not gonna carry cool stuff while your parents are shopping. Because they used to have like a Nintendo there. They used to have things. I remember, that was a shame. But I was like, I remember they had cool stuff.
They used to have a Lego section. They used to have Lego there.
Yeah, they would have like a small toys. So like it's not as cool as like your Targets or whatever. But yeah, they would have some toys. At least at mine when I was growing up. But yours might have had more. But
well, I do know that Edmonton did have the largest Sears store in Canada. It also had the second largest. So
the Super Sears.
We had Super Sears on two of our malls. No longer. So yeah, that's a bit tragic in a way, but oh well. Maybe they could still buy Smell the Glove there in its all black cover.
Smell the Glove.
Yep.
So yeah, Sears.com album section. Smell the Glove. That's it.
That's the only one they have. Yeah.
Out of stock.
Yeah.
Cover image not available.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. So I wanted to point out that this is an odd occurrence for my podcast because a year ago to this episode, like 1 year ago, it would have been like the next so we're airing on the 29th, or it would have been the
52 weeks prior.
52 weeks prior.
Right.
The episode that we did on this show was the decline of Western civilization with my guest, the director of Bleeding Audio, Chelsea Christer.
Okay.
Do you know the decline of Western civilization?
Is that a Quebec film from the 1980s?
It is from the 1980s, but it is a music documentary about the punk rock scene in Los Angeles in the early 80s.
The decline of American civilization.
Yes.
Is probably the thing that I'm thinking of.
There you go.
Because that would have been a hell of a deep cut. That I have not seen the decline of Western civilization.
It's pretty intense. But Chelsea Christer, who directed Bleeding Audio, which is a music documentary about a band called The Matches, which was like an emo punk band in the early 2000s that never got across the hump, never got like this hit, they were getting close. And it's about like what life's like for a band like that and where they go to after, when's the cutting off point, like what success really means. And so she was on there. So it was like a 2-for episode for me. It was two music documentaries. Here I am that exact day here with another music documentary, but not a real one, but a real one.
So in a year's time,
I guess
you have to talk about The Filth and the Fury or some other, or The Last Waltz or some other,
or dude Rudels again,
Rudels,
maybe.
Yep.
but yeah, like it was real. You pick that, and then I'm writing up about this episode. I'm like, wait a minute, because I did a video. One of my best videos for a promo was Decline of Western Civilization. I called it Decline of Podcast Civilization. And I did it about myself being this a-hole podcaster. And I literally in a couple days scrounged up previous guests, made it look like a documentary about me being a jerk podcaster. And I can't believe I pulled it together, but it's one of my favorite videos I did. I was like, oh, that was about a year ago. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing another music doc. Wild. So This is the week of like the post American Thanksgiving week is music documentary city.
Unintended anniversaries, basically.
Yeah, like it spooked me for a second. I was like, wow, that's weird, because I didn't. You picked the movie, Steven, not me.
I did. I don't honestly, like, when I got your email, I was thinking, well, geez, what would I even pick? And then I was thinking, well, I've never been able to talk about Spinal Tap at great length on any podcast ever. And now is the time. There's another podcast, a network that I know of, that I'm a part of, The Incomparable, and I thought, well, I know they're fans, and literally their 8th episode, like 10 years ago, they did on Spinal Tap. So I feel like all my avenues of talking about Spinal Tap were disappearing. So
I'm happy to have this episode of the Brandon Peters Show, which is Puppet Show and Steven Schapansky.
I told them once, I told them 100 times, show Puppet Show last, Spinal Tap first.
Oh, I love
Jazz
it.
Odyssey. There is actually one of the. I mean, I played in a band, as I said. We did a cover of "Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight." We did an original song in another band, and we didn't have a name for it, so I said, "Let's call it Jazz Odyssey," because after Derek Spall's Jazz Odyssey that they played at the Puppet Show, my life is informed by Spinal Tap references. Very much so. I'm a drummer that actually who's still alive, thankfully. I know they're sort of making fun of the
don't join Spinal
Tap
if they need one.
No, which would be tragic, but fun in the same way. But I'm probably suffering from a very
law of averages.
Law of averages says I will survive. Yeah, so it's a big trip to.
I had a flashback to podcasting wise when they did the military base and there's the PA going on. I did one of my first live podcast shows I did about, I don't know how many years ago, I'm not going to count. For my old show, we got put up, it was a stage at a convention, and they put it out in the food atrium court because, little built-in audience, that's fair.
Right.
But for some reason, somebody at that time decided to change all the ice or refill all the ice in all the soda fountain machines through all the little food court things. It was like during the whole thing, and I'm just like, and you can't hear.
No,
I'm looking at people out there, they're like, I'm like, yeah, but it was like so weird. Where they had that, I had a flashback to that. I was like, yep, I've been there. I've been there. Spinal Tap.
People don't think about it. I love the fact that Fred Willard did a great cameo. Expects like to get underway in at 1830 hours. They don't know how much is like half an hour. Like how long do you think it takes to set up a rock and roll stage?
Oh, geez.
Half an hour. He has no idea. I love some of Fred Willard's lines because just like, oh, but we're all big fans of your music. Not necessarily yours, but the whole genre, the whole movement. And then I love how he says, I thought I get 1830, 1700, 1900, something like that. Get it on, get it over with. And that's like he's just very low key. You can tell why. Willard features in all of Christopher Guest's movies like this later on because he's just so good at it. I mean, there are so many talented people in this that are in there for so short a time, but bring so much. Howard Hessman. Yeah. We got to go and sit in the lobby and wait for the limo. His line, all improvised, and like he was a big deal at the time. Like,
that was a get. That was someone's got a favor in there too, probably.
Right. Yeah. So like, there's so many just rock solid cameos. It just it's not just the three of them that have the great lines. It's the hotel attendant. When he goes where Ian is sort of complaining to him that instead of getting 7 suites, they've booked one suite on the 7th floor.
Yes.
And Ian goes, this puff adder or whatever he calls him. He just looks just as shocked. He goes, "I'm just as God made me, sir."
Yes, I cried at that.
And they cut it, and they cut it right after that because
Just as God made me, sir.
that is the heat of the moment, and they cut it. That's another part where it's just perfect editing. That's the joke. It doesn't have to rely on just the 3 stars. It doesn't have to build up to it. It's just a short little quick scene, and it just ends perfectly. It's so brilliantly edited.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I go on and on about this movie.
I love it.
So good.
I recently saw 2000. I say recently, in the last 3 years, I saw 2001 in the theater. First time ever. Never seen it in the theater. Always watched it. Like, first I watched it on VHS, then I bought the Blu-ray and or the DVD, and I loved it. I loved it since I first saw it on my 18th birthday, but I didn't watch it for a few years. And then I thought, well, do I really love it? Is it really still my favorite movie, or am I just afraid to watch it again just in case it has fallen in esteem? And then I go and see it in the theater, and I says, this is still my favorite movie of all time. I was mildly concerned because I watched it once before this, which is probably why it was fresh in my mind, because I watched it just on a whim like a few months ago. And I thought, I watched it a billion times like 20 years ago. Is it still going to be that perfect movie for me? And I'm here to tell you it is.
Yeah,
it's
confirmed.
It is confirmed. It's nice to sort of go back and realize that it's not just nostalgia feeding your love of a movie or a TV show or an album or something like that. It is a genuinely perfect piece of art, and that's what this is. Spinal Tap is.
Yeah, I'm gonna end it. I'll put that right there. We'll go on to what else. This is where we just kind of talk about anything else we got going on. Maybe something we've read recently or watched or listened to or want to recommend or check out. So, Steven, what else?
I have been. I bought. It's funny. Every time I wanted to watch James Bond movies, they would be on a streaming service. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start watching James Bond movies. And then they would disappear from that streaming service. As he pants over to the living daylights. So I had seen a lot of the Bonds a long time ago, but like in passing, so to speak.
Okay.
Long story. But I enjoyed the hell out of Skyfall. And also, and then I saw Spectre in London when I was came out when I was in London, which was really cool in 2017, and I was really looking forward to the most recent one, No Time to Die. And so I thought, instead of trying to find this, I'm just go, oh, look at this. There's all Bond films, all of them, up from Dr. No all the way through to Spectre for like $100 on iTunes. So I bought them all, and I just started watching them late at night, almost like 1 or 2 or 3 a week. I stopped briefly. I stopped after For Your Eyes Only. So the other ones are mostly new. I don't remember the Dalton ones at all.
Oh, okay. Those are going to probably play pretty well for you.
I think so, because it's fascinating to watch them. And then I watch the documentaries on them because I love Blu-ray extras. And
VAM!
The iTunes has the VAM on there. And it's just fascinating to see the progression of just the James Bond, that sort of genre and the popularity of it through the 60s and 70s. So I've been watching all those, and it's also a very huge resource to spot Doctor Who actors in bit parts. You could also hear some sound effects that show up in various different, like The Prisoner and like other Doctor Who as well, like in the 90s, because it's like basically they pull from the same stock sound effects that everyone's pulling from. So sometimes you wait a second, that's the door to number 2's house in The Prisoner. So yeah, I've been watching James Bond. I really enjoyed For Your Eyes Only, because it was sort of a one-shot return to the sort of the minimalist type of films of the 1960s. I'm not necessarily looking forward too much to Octopussy and the other one,
A View to
Kill. Apart from theme song,
Octopussy has a good concept for its finale that could have worked somewhere. It's one of the Bond family. I'll say that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, to analyzing it and enjoying it, and then into Dalton and Brosnan. I have no memory of any Brosnan films.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
I'm looking forward to those as well, and I really like the Craig films. So in a relative short amount of time, I sort of became like a James Bond fan.
There you go.
So that's kind of what's been fueling me.
I've always been a James Bond fan, but I got my start blogging for doing James Bond. I did a retrospective of writing
Oh.
each film back leading up to Skyfall for
Mhm.
now Forbes writer Scott Mendelson back when he had his blog Mendelson's Memos, and
Right.
he was working at an attorney's office and had less time. He's like, "Can you throw me some content?" I'm like, well, I kind of want to go back through the Bond movie. What if I just write a piece about each movie leading up to? He's like, brilliant. And then that kind of turned into a thing where I just wrote these retrospectives and then
Mhm.
blah, 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 podcasting. So long story short,
Just like that.
but you're not watching them on CED. Do you remember CED?
I do not remember. See, what does that even stick on? What is that?
So that's what these two are.
Yeah.
And that's just because I collect physical media, put them on my
Naturally.
wall because
Why
like that's normal.
Well, you can't put a DVD cover on your wall and have it look cool like that there. Yeah.
So CED came out around Betamax and VHS, and it was like it's not really a CD or something, but it's this like big cartridge, and you'd put it into this machine, and then you'd have to flip it over and put it in again. And I really like the artwork on these. I thought
Right.
I thought that art came from like one of those like Time Life plate collections from that they used to have back in the day, and I was like,
Yep.
man, I wish they'd have a poster. And then I found out they were from CEDs, and then I was like, well, how much are they on eBay? And it's like $2 for each of them. And I was like, okay. And then I got curious. I was like, how much is a CED player? Nope, still not cheap. Don't know why. Don't know why. Like
probably the rarity, I'm imagining. I mean, even a
that
VHS
it's
player
totally,
is tough to get right now. So
and people wonder why I have 4 VHS players.
hold on to those
Currency.
like they are life.
Well,
yes.
I had like, so I have one that I have hooked up for, I don't know why, but and then I have 3 backups, and people are like, why? I'm like, because if it goes out, then I have another one. If that goes out, and I had a grandparent pass away one time, and there was a DVD VCR combo sitting there while everybody's, as they do, poured through all their stuff, and I was just going there to check out, see if people needed help, and I was like, hey, does anybody want that VCR down? They're like, why? She never even plugged that thing in ever. And I was like, well, thanks, Grandma. I'm gonna take this, I guess. And it's a never used one, so I have that clean one. So
listen, Phil Morris, who has found missing Doctor Who episodes and other lost media over the years, uses as barter old archaic videotape machines like U-matic or 3/4 inch tape.
Yeah.
Because to exchange with certain overseas archives that do not have the machines to play back their archive material on, in exchange for missing film cans and stuff like this. So maybe one day you'll find yourself like, oh, you have 6 missing episodes of Doctor Who. How would you like this brand new VHS player for your national archives to be able to play it on again? So
there you go.
You never know.
I would love to be in the lore of that. I'd be like, I found this in a book in the library. It's 2 film trims of pictures from Marco Polo. Is that okay? So, or no, the massacre. So we actually have something from it.
Oh yeah,
there we
thank
go.
you, please.
But yeah, no, that'd be great. But I love I love hearing about people's James Bond journeys. It's a fun series. It's cool to watch. Just it grow, it copy things, it copy itself, it do all sorts of interesting. Do you have a favorite Bond of them all, or?
I mean, it's boy, oh boy, is it wrong just to say Daniel Craig? Because
no,
because it's made for a modern audience, and I look at it, and you know what, I feel like, who is directed the Bourne? Is it Paul? I always get Paul Greengrass and Paul McGuigan.
There's Paul Greengrass did the Bournes after the first one. It was Doug Liman did the first one, and then Paul Greengrass did 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always feel like those 2 people are probably the most important directors in James Bond history, because I feel like they completely changed. Like James Bond was sort of like this sort of bloated super technology, invisible cars sort of thing. And then all of a sudden those Bourne movies came out, and it was sort of, it basically kind of did what For Your Eyes Only did. It was like
poked
back
him.
to basics.
It's like it poked. It was like, hey,
you can't just sort of rest on your Bond laurels anymore. And so like, I feel like 2005, 2006 really had 2 very successful refreshings of British icons in Doctor Who and then James Bond a year later. They're really good films. I like how the character sort of carries through the movies. They're not as like just like standalone and stuff. There's consequences that take place in Casino Royale that
Right.
play out 4 or 5 films later. So yeah, and it's amazing to think how much controversy there was when Daniel Craig was cast.
It's so weird.
Not James Bond and all this other nonsense. Like, it was just.
That's why fans don't just
put that on your panel list. It's ridiculous.
yeah. No, it will. Yeah, that will be things they cried about, things they were wrong about.
Yeah,
like,
it's also like I just like seeing the poster image of Casino Royale and thinking Daniel Craig is a baby back then compared to what he is on, I mean, it's no Roger Moore. Roger Moore's like what, 58 in View to a Kill. He's not that old, but like he does look like, it's not the years, it's the mileage.
We used to be like, get out, old man. Now we're like, stay, old man.
Yeah,
stay.
Yep. So
and he's the longest tenured by years of James Bond, which is crazy.
It is fascinating, given that you feel like he's sort of been reluctant. You kind of get the impression that he's leaving after Skyfall, that he's back for one, and then he's like trashing it in the press, like, oh, James Bond's done for me. It's like, oh well, he is just burning his bridges.
I think he's just a misunderstood Joker, kind of, or just a guy.
So.
Like, I don't, because he's never had bad relationships with the producers or anything. They finances, like, right around that time, they were financing a production in London for him or something like that. It's like,
really?
Yeah, I think he's just like, oh man, I'd rather. Daniel Craig is like this. Like, I think that's kind of where it goes. I mean, he did that. That was a big production after a big production that's gonna wear a guy out. And and I think he's been the longest everyone lucky because the studio MGM has been going under and having problems, and
that too. And then COVID, basically, he's shooting his last film 2 years ago now.
Yes.
Like, and he still having to do press for a movie that he shot 2 years ago because it's only finally coming out.
Yeah.
But I saw it and it's great. No Time to Die is super. I'm not going to spoil anything for people who might not have seen it yet, even though it's been a month and a half. But the Craig 5 Bond series are really good films. Yeah, really, really good. They're self-aware a little more, but not like to the point of parody. I think they're made with an eye towards feminist relations in the past. You could really tell how far feminism has come in the years since the later Connerys, especially. I feel like that, and
I think you're going to be surprised. Brosnan films introduces ideas that Craig explores too. Craig's is more heavier on those, but Brosnan brings up some of those ideas that Craig's era gets very praised for. And then Dalton, as a Bond character, got reviled for being the same kind of Bond that Craig played. So it's kind of funny to see how times change, what people look more for or accept. So
I'm looking forward to those then. I'm really, because I think I'm less in favor of George Lazenby's Bond each time I watch the movie, even though the movie he's in is fantastic.
It's because it's Diana Rigg's movie, not his. And when I will say that's the one that's about the Bond girl, and the movie suffers when she disappears for like 40 minutes of the movie.
It does a bit when he goes to that weird thing in the Swiss Alps and stuff, and where Joanna Lumley is seen very briefly. And
Catherine Schell,
Catherine Schell from City of Death. There we are. Check that. George Baker doing the voice for him for most of those scenes as well. He was the Doctor Who. Oh yeah, I believe my Dwaydar, as I call it, my Doctor Who radar was pinging. There's also a great theme remix by Propellerheads, who did the song famously from the first Matrix movie. But on that same album is a remix of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. It is superb.
I have to check that out. I love that theme.
Do check it out. It's a really great tune. And in the middle of it, there's some music from You Only Live Twice, which has the most bonkers bass set. I know we're going off a tangent on James Bond, but like when I first watched that,
British people who change the main character, the lead's the same character, but changes the actor, we're fine with it. That's what we're hooked on it. We're hooked on that stuff.
Well, what was amazing to me is that when you look at a big wide shot of a movie, especially in 1960s cinema, you think in a glass shot, that's got to be a glass shot. But then the camera starts moving and it's still there. A helicopter is flying into the top. That's got to be a model. No, it's a real helicopter. Ken Adam built this massive underground lair.
It's
and
incredible.
It's real. It's life size. They didn't have the technology to make it a miniature and film it that way, so they just built the thing outside of an actual studio in order to have the. It's
one of the most impressive
amazing.
sets ever made. Like
It's
it's
stunning.
insane.
And then they have like a billion stuntmen fall off, and there's explosions. And they get, if this was made today in this respect, it would be the most expensive movie ever.
Oh yeah.
It's all on screen.
And in order to make money, it would have to be directed by James Cameron, because he's the only guy who spends tons of money. You're like, dude, you're never getting that back. Oh, okay,
No.
you made it back. Wow.
Yeah, you're never. And then they do it basically again 10 years later in Spy Who Loved Me, which is also just a bonkers ending. You know, it's just those are my.
There's
two
a trilogy.
favorite films.
There's the volcano with You Only Live Twice. There's Spy Who Loved Me with the underwater, and then they go to the moon in Moonraker. It's like the little trilogy, all from the same director.
That's
but
right, Lewis Gilbert,
but that's why people are like, oh, Moonraker goes. I'm like, dude, it was a premise. Like he went to the ground, he went to the sea, then he goes to the sky. Like it meant, like, I have always argued Moonraker is like 3/4 one of the best James Bond movies, and then your mileage may vary on the final quarter. But that's how I am with that one.
I thought it was ridiculous, and therefore I loved it.
Yes,
Guys floating through space, shooting each other with lasers. I thought it's basically the undersea battle at the end of You Only Live Twice.
Or
Thunderball.
Thunderball's undersea. Yeah,
Thunderball, except it's in space.
Right.
And why not?
Course. Yes. James Bond. I could go on for hours again, just like Doctor Who. But I'll go to my what else. I'll be brief about mine since we went there.
After I've hogged the mic for so long, I'm
all
so
good.
sorry.
My show is your show. I finished I've like a Netflix show, like Midnight Mass, which is Mike Flanagan's new thing. He's known for those Haunting of Hill House, and I'm kind of weird with the Netflix shows. They drop them all, and then I'm like, this one came out in October, but I was like, I was really busy with my Blu-ray reviews at the time, so it's like I want to enjoy that, so I'm gonna hold off. And then I only watched one episode whenever I did.
Oh,
and
that's wonderful.
Didn't cram them.
I applaud this approach. I applaud it.
While I'm not, I dog Netflix a lot because I think a lot of their binge programming is, I don't think they appreciate the model of the episode, just a single episode much.
We could do a podcast on James Bond. We could do a podcast on what you're about to say about Netflix too.
So
just so you know, you're talking to it. You're preaching to a choir.
Which is why with Flux, I'm really impressed with Chris Chibnall. Every single episode of a serialized story has a point A, B, and C to get to the end, and I'm astounded. I'm like, that's how serialization is done. Which people just think, oh, it's a long movie. No. But when it comes to that stuff, Mike Flanagan, I've really enjoyed his stuff that he's put out. And this Midnight Mass, take the horror stuff out of it, it is still incredibly engaging because it has a battle of about religion and like atheism and being a Muslim and how like it is fascinating conversations are had in that show about people's like faith, science, all this stuff. Really, the conversations that we should have today with people, or people should be having about things, and learning to respect one another's type of things and how it's reacted. And it's there on the screen for people to see, like, hey, look. And I really appreciate that aspect most of it. Oh yeah, and there's like some like kind of vampire thing going on. But these like this challenge on like religion and accepting others, or like logic, ideology, stuff like that, is just pretty amazingly just open, blunt, and there on the page for that show. And I really thought that was an awesome aspect of it. But
I'm mildly surprised that my spouse Erica watched the first two that you talked about in fairly short fashion, and yet hasn't picked this one up. I don't know if that's just because she has other more fluffier stuff perhaps to get through.
It's deep. It
feels like it's a heavier version, heavier type of show. Maybe that's not up her alley quite yet. I have no time because I'm watching old James Bond films. Of course. So who has time for Netflix series?
Which I would nobody.
And like, Doctor Who.
There's 8 new full series every Friday. Why?
How do you pick and choose?
If
you tell me I gotta watch all of them, them. I'm not gonna watch any of them.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but this one I like the guy who drew the creator of it, and I was like, I'll hold off and watch this. And there was an episode where the sheriff, it's this little island town, and the sheriff is the only Muslim on there. They're all mainly Catholics, and there's talking about like, why is like the son brought something to school, it offended, and he's like, well, you guys do this teachings, and he's trying to explain how he's not dangerous as a Muslim, and there's this woman just not having it, and it's just amazing this way this conversation goes. It's pretty great.
Interesting.
And there's all the science stuff in there for me too. So it's all
naturally.
It's all good. So
vampires don't hurt either. So.
Vampires are cool too. But yeah, that's on there. Midnight Mass. You've probably already seen it, and I'm late to the game. But if you haven't, and you're not even into horror, but you want to see some fights about ideologies, there you go, right there.
But no big scenes featuring underground layers or lasers in space.
There was like a cave, I think.
Right.
There was like a cave.
Right.
But yeah. But no super spy action. Nobody that was a spy that I know of.
Right.
That was planted on the island. But yeah. But yes, definitely James Bond is probably streaming in places, right? I don't know. I have a box set, so I know.
Right. I know.
I pulled to that. So
exactly.
Awesome. But that'll wrap us up here for today. Steven, thank you so much for popping out of Flux to come here and class up our show today. I really appreciate it. So before we sign out, let people know where they can keep up with you and your happenings.
I'm on Twitter at Legopolis, Legopolis, a city full of Lego, because I love Lego, and Logopolis is the name of a Doctor Who episode. So
the one we all cried at. Yeah.
That's I know, the one that changed my life as a kid when Tom Baker died at the end of it. So yeah, find me on Twitter. RadioFreeScaro.com is also my podcast there. Lazy Doctor Who is my other Doctor Who podcast that I do with my spouse Erica. We've been watching all of Doctor Who from the very first episode at our own pace, hence the name of the show, Lazy Doctor Who. And then the Memory Cheats is another show that I do with my friend Kyle. We randomly draw episodes from certain eras and then talk about them for 15 or 20 minutes without doing any research or knowing any, seeing if our memory does indeed cheat. We're on hiatus now because we're waiting for the end of the Chris Chibnall era, which of course is coming. So series 4 of the Memory Cheats will be coming at some point in the next 2 years. So if you really want to wait long, the Memory Cheats on Twitter for that one too.
Excellent. I recommend all 3 shows.
No, thank you.
There you go. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD, written work at whysoblue.com. There is more for the Brandon Peters Show this week, but until then, stay film positive.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.